Hi everyone. Nice to see you all again. A couple of familiar faces, so to speak. A lot of old friends, a couple of people that I never met before, so looking forward to meeting you all. Today I'm going to be talking about how to utilize custom product pages, which is pretty much an area that a lot of people are testing out, trying to get good performance out of it. Some people tested it out, good results. Some people tested out, really didn't get that much of a difference, or even worse in certain cases. So I'm going to be going over the best practice that I was able to see in the past year, especially. I'm basically sharing all of that information with you folks. So a little bit about Mobile Action. So we were founded in 2013 as an agency. We developed our products. By the time of 2018, we became a full stack app and insight tool for it, and then we went ahead and developed our searches.com dashboard, which is an Apple Search as campaign management platform, and finally becoming an official partner of Apple in 2020. So just a couple of people that we had the pleasure of working with. I want to start off by talking about Apple Searches and why we're talking about Apple Searches specifically. Everyone has different opinions about Apple Searches. Some people are saying, yeah, it's one of the most major channels for me. It's quite very good performing, and some people have a really negative attitude towards Apple Search Ads in general. So why are we talking about Apple Searches and what we could do with it today? So very simply, the App Store is basically something that over 600 million people go to every week to discover and download apps. Yeah, there might be different methods of them to go to it and stuff, but the thing is, 70% of these App Store visitors do use search to discover their apps. And the downloads, 65% of them actually come and happen right after a particular search. So why is that important? Because Apple Search is targeting those specific search terms that you're targeting and you're putting in your campaigns for that particular reason. So that's why that becomes quite very important. Also, what we're able to see is that over 60% of the top 10 apps that we see in the top charts in pretty much every single category is running Apple Searches to some degree, right? Some of them are doing brand protection, some of them going full force, doing every single campaign type that you might be thinking about. But yeah, pretty much every single app that you might be seeing that is performing quite very well is going to be utilizing and using Apple Searches quite very extensively. This goes on for games as well. I know, especially for games, there's a lot of mixed opinions when it comes to Apple Searches usage and making it work. Depends on the product as well a lot. There's two particular reports that I would love you folks to check out online. Is the AppsFlyer report from 2022 and the recently released ROI Index by Singular that also talks about where Apple Search is heading towards to and how it's growing on the iOS side of things. How it's becoming a major channel and a major channel that is being used specifically. So I would definitely 100% suggest that you guys check it out. It also gives some good insights for other channels that you might be going in. What is gaining traction, what is losing traction, and what you should be focusing on a little bit more. All right, so before I go into specifics of custom product pages, as it's quite very straightforward, is increasing the relevancy to the user to the ad that you're showing them, right? I do want to talk about a little bit about the whole logic and how does it work. What is the main things that we should be focusing on? So when it comes to optimization and going into the logic itself, the thing that I notice a lot from a lot of the clients is that, understandably, everyone's very cost-oriented. It's always a certain CPI number that they're focusing and trying to optimize towards too. The thing is, that's the end result, right? It's not the major thing. That's not the initial step to determine if something is working well or not. That's just a making of your own doing, so to speak, if your conversion rates and tap-through rates are not performing as greatly as you would expect it to. So the first things first that you should be focusing on, this is, of course, accepting that you are getting already a certain number of impressions to the ads that you're showing, is that, number one, focus on your tap-through rate. If it's performing below a certain average, it's very, very simply, you're showing the ad, people are seeing that ad, but they're not converting over to even go into your own store listing, right? So when you utilize custom product pages through the ads, of course, the customized screenshots that you're showing, once they do the search, is going to be popping up, and that should be improving your overall tap-through rate. That will be the first thing that you should be focused on optimizing towards too. And the following thing, of course, after that happens, is to increase your conversion rate, which is your install rate for that particular reason, for the context. So if you go ahead and increase those both sides, the automatic effect of that is going to be that you're going to have a decreased CPI and an increased ROAS, given the fact that you're spending an identical amount on both sides, right? So those are the things that should be focused on. It's one of the most major mistakes that I see. It's more about focusing on the result. Why is my cost too high? while trying to optimize and try to decrease that, that's great. But the main thing is understanding what is the tap-through rate, what is the conversion rate, what affects those, and what improves the performance, what decreases the performance, and focus on that significantly more extensively. The other thing is about the keyword selection that we're doing, right? A lot of people go into this, and the first things first is whatever app that you're doing, usually go with the category that you're in. The specific main value proposition that you have, the specific area that you're in, right? Let's say you have a dating app for that matter, right? And you go ahead and you want to bid on the keyword dating specifically. It's a super generic keyword, super competitive. Everyone who has a dating app of some extent who's running Apple searches is going to be going and targeting that particular keyword, right? Which means, unless you have a very, very, very strong position in the market already, you're going to have a lot of difficulty. It's going to be probably potentially more expensive. There's going to be a lot of bids in between certain ranges that you need to beat. Every single 10, 50 cent increase that you do to your keyword bids is going to be largely affecting your average CPT numbers for that reason. So when you're going into it and when you're selecting the keywords, keep in mind that's just a rough estimation of what you want Apple Search has to show as an ad. So even if you go ahead and select exact match, right? That's not the only keyword, not the only search term that you're bidding on actually. So let's say a very, very easy example that we use with like dating, right? So there's misspellings of dating. There's a lot of different variations of it, right? Datings might be something that somebody searches for mistakenly, right? Or without the G at the end and stuff. Even if you go ahead with exact match, that keyword is going to be covered, so you don't need to go ahead and do those misspellings all one by one and add them as exact matches simultaneously. It's just going to result in you competing with each other, just dividing up the traffic unnaturally. Not necessarily in a cost-wise, but it's just going to be messing up your metrics for that site. So when you're going into it, you should be looking at the keywords according to the search intent. The thing is, everyone's very concerned, especially after IDFA. Target is not a thing. We cannot do that and everything. Here's the thing: you're targeting keywords. You're not targeting a group of people. You're targeting a very specific intent itself, right? So that's the power that you should be thinking about. If you're targeting specific keywords and utilizing certain keywords, including long tail variants of them, which is one of the main areas that I suggest everyone to go into and be a little bit more creative about that side is, those particular searches that you're doing is targeting a very specific group of people that are looking for a very specific product to serve their needs, right? That is better than targeting for 18 to 35, or a gender type for that matter, or a particular location, right? They know what they want, they search for it. If you can pop up into their feed at that point, that's where you're going to be winning them. And that's why, overall, as an average, tap-through rates and conversion rates tend to be higher in Apple searches, right? Because you're targeting a specific intent for that. So when you're grouping these keywords under ad groups, right? You have your campaigns, control them as much as possible, and when you're going to have ad groups, think of it in that sense as well. These groups should be your groups of people that you're targeting your product towards too, right? Specifically according to their search intent. Let's say you have a health and fitness app. Somebody is looking for an ab workout. Somebody is looking for a healthy living lifestyle guidance thing. Somebody is looking for let's say calisthenics, probably pronouncing that completely wrong, but yeah, so according to those particular groups, divide them accordingly, because those groups, and all those keywords attached to them, of course, and the long tail variations of them, are very specifically targeted to those people. Then, at that point, you have the opportunity immediately, it will just click. You divided up the groups of people who use your app, who would want to use your app, and then you divided them into ad groups, and you apply custom product pages to ad groups. So it just allows you to have that further customization and improvement of performance for it, right? So another thing that is very common, and we've been talking about it as mobile action quite a lot for the past almost like 2 years at this point, a little bit more than that actually, is that yes, Apple Searches does have an organic benefit, right? When it comes to organic rankings and everything. But there is something that I'm seeing. Oh, we started running Apple Searches, but my organic rankings started to drop, right? That's something that I do hear quite very frequently too. Here's the thing. Apple doesn't really only, although that's very unpopular opinion, not after your money all the time. They have a really high understanding of increasing the user experience for everyone that goes through the App Store, right? If your keyword is not relevant, let's say you're a dating app, but you're saying something like track finance, and that's the keyword that you're bidding on, most likely, despite whatever bid amount that you're going to be putting onto that keyword, you're not going to generate any amount of traffic for it. And the reason for that is trying to increase the relevancy to the user as much as possible. So the algorithm on that side, for what it works for Apple Searches, is the same for the App Store itself, right? It tries to increase the user experience as much as possible. So What does it look at specifically? It looks at tap-through rates, it looks at conversion rates, it looks at your daily download velocity, right? Are you growing in terms of population through that particular search intent? Is it relevant enough that people are clicking on it and starting to utilize that app? And other things attached to it as well. But those three main things are going to be your main determinants when it comes to your organic ranking for any keyword. So if you notice a keyword that is, let's say, the CPI is 10 cents, super low, but your conversion rate is 25% and your tap-through rate is 2%, that's probably going to be damaging your organic ranking for that keyword and related keywords to it. Reason being why, it's not relevant. Yes, it's cheap, but it's not relevant. So it's going to be pushing you down on that statistic for the organic ranking, and it's going to be quite very hard for you to catch up to it. So sometimes it's good of an idea to keep the algorithm in the dark, especially for keywords that you know are not going to be super 100% relevant, and you kind of go ahead and target with Apple searches with a specific keyword, and that's going to be quite very difficult to do so. The other one is, again, daily download velocity, and this is the most commonly known one when it comes to organic improvements and all of that. But that alone itself is not going to be the only thing. So you might already see some very popular apps that have been out for quite a few years, and there's a trendy app that comes in and immediately starts to replace them in terms of the the rankings that they have for a part of the keyword, part of the category, doesn't really matter. It's all about the daily download velocity that that particular app is getting, right? That's going to be affecting that. So if you go ahead and focus on that as well, if you see a day over day, week over week growth in terms of number of installs that you're getting, and that's why custom product pages will help you, because immediately you're increasing the relevancy, increasing the conversion rate, even if you're getting identical impression rates. So let's say you're getting 10,000 impressions the past week. Now you're getting, again, 10,000 impressions. You didn't change the bid, you didn't change the budget. But since you applied a custom product page and made it more relevant, your conversion rate is going to go high. So that's going to signal to the algorithm, okay, people who are searching for this keyword are more and more interested in this particular app, thus helping you out with the organic rankings too. So why do I talk about all of these organic things and all that? Because the effect that we're talking about, that Apple searches affect ASO in general and organics in general, is because the algorithm is pretty much shared. It's pretty similar. The way that it works, the way that it gives you positions and everything is quite very similar for that reason. All right, so my screen is not updating as fast. But yeah, so let me go into the main topic of today. So that's custom product pages and how to basically effectively go ahead and utilize them. So number one, this is a research that was done by McKinsey in 2021. Very understandably, despite the personalized ads opt-in rate suggests, 71% of the consumers expect a personalized communication and offer to it. So this applies for your product page too, because that's what you're offering. That's the point where you're showing, here's what I am, here's what I do, here's the thing that you're going to be able to get out of my product specifically. So that's your product page listing itself. So if you go ahead and customize it towards those particular grouped people, then you're going to be hopefully increasing your overall relevancy to those people that are going in and searching for it, and increase your overall performance to it, right? So for those of you who already know it, it's quite a very straightforward example. This is something that is gratefully shared by Apple as a example for custom product pages. So the same app that we have named Garden, it's just a generic one that has been created for the purpose. When the user goes ahead and searches for gardening tips, they are seeing visuals attached to it that are more so related to gardening tips exactly. And if they're going with plant delivery, it's showing certain values about the plant delivery side, the mapping side, tracking the delivery progress and everything attached to it. All right. So before we go into we went into the era of custom product pages, it was very limited. You had a bunch of keywords. You had a bunch of keywords that you were organically ranking for, and you weren't able to customize anything. You weren't able to pop out any kind of offer. You weren't able to pop out any particular value without necessarily giving up on something else. So with that, it gives you an opportunity to do so. So you can have up to 35 different custom product page variants as of today, right? And the user needs to be using iOS 15.2 or more, a higher version for iOS to see the custom product page listing. Otherwise, they're going to see the default product page if it's an older version. But the adoption rate is quite very high at this point. So like the majority of the users that you're looking for are actually going to be, seeing the custom product page for the most part. And yeah, as I did explain, it helps you increase the relevancy, and it goes ahead and does it. So let me go over a couple of use cases and talk about why it seems to be working well. So I have an example from Expedia here, right? So Expedia, as you might know, you can book flights, you can book hotels, you can rent cars and stuff like that. So what they're doing with their custom product page side is, for keywords like flight and flight related keywords, they're showing the above custom product page setting that is based around price changes. Why? Because when somebody's going to be booking for a flight specifically, one of the most major things is they want to book the exact same flight from a similar airline or the same airline for a cheaper price, right? And that's one of the main value propositions that everyone does offer, and it's a very well-known thing, and that's one of the particular main uses for when somebody is going to be using a product to book a flight for it. So that's the visuals that they're using. When it goes down to a hotel, right, you start to see listings of those particular hotels or different certain boutique places that you could visit to. The background images start to change, and then the entire value proposition changes into this is all about hotel booking to it. So somebody who's searching for these particular terms accordingly is going to see their relevant visual statistics. So what this affects immediately is they make a certain search intent by putting in the particular keyword that they're doing, the visual that they're doing, the particular word that they're doing, and then they're landing on a particular visual set that is going to be taking a significantly higher amount of interest to them to convert over at a higher ratio. And this is something that we have been seeing quite very true as well. So here is for flow, which someone might know is quite very popular too. For keywords of period tracker and pregnancy, they have completely two different data sets. And when you can see the style of it, the color scheme is quite very similar, but the style of it is quite very different too. What you can see is for the pregnancy side, it's significantly more detail-oriented, right? It's a lot of data-oriented. Why? Because it's something that is proven at this point. I can't remember the specific report that I saw it in, but when women do go into pregnancy, they tend to look up a lot of things online. They search for a lot of things. It's a very data-oriented process for them, and as much that they can see about that is helping them out. So yes, you might say this is so much clutter, there's too much information for anyone to process. No, for the specific group that is looking for this, and you're not going ahead and targeting pregnant women in your ad group settings or anything, but since you're targeting the specific search term itself, it gives you the opportunity to target towards people who actually have an interest towards pregnancy. And for the period tracker, since it's more of a routine thing, it just shows the ease of use to it, just to be able to track it. It's just, don't worry, I got you. Kind of a visual, and it's more popping out on that side, while the other one is more data-oriented to it. So very simply straightforward. Another thing that you could use custom product pages for is to maximize it during seasonality. This is very, very straightforward. A lot of people have been doing this for many, many years with their icons and screenshots, and within the app itself as well. Any game that has a pumpkin on top of the character's head, and Halloween is pretty much expected at this point. But yeah, when it comes to Black Friday events are coming in, they're using Black Friday. The entire actually structure is identical. It's just customized towards a particular seasonal event that it is. So going from Black Friday to Christmas, but when you can see it's exactly the same deal, it's exactly the same visual set. It's just it's made more festive down below. And for Black Friday is, again, with a black theme a little bit more too, for that reason. So you can go ahead and leverage that during the seasonal times as well. These are more so used in cases where you have a product that has a very specific purpose. So you're serving one very specific thing. It's a very specific niche, right? And you want to be able to utilize custom product pages, but you don't really know why. And how you can do it. So this is a perfect area that you can do it throughout those seasonal events, making it more festive. The reason why everyone is doing those Halloween heads on the characters and pumpkins all around during that particular season is because it works. You attach to the particular potential user. They feel that they're part of your schedule, right, for that reason. And that increases the engagement of that particular user from the get-go. So what I mean by that engagement is not necessarily only in the app, but the entire process that they go through the app as well. So, yeah, sure.
In that case for seasonality, would you be specifically targeting those very niche keyword searches like Black Friday deals or something like that?
Not only.
Or would you be doing it for a more generic search?
Yeah.
But I'm wondering, if you do it for a more generic kind of keyword bank, why wouldn't you test on product page sort of optimization as opposed to custom product page?
Well, yeah, if you're not doing that many app updates, yeah, go ahead and use product page optimization. But once you do an app update review, it stops that process. It takes too much time. By the time, like seasonal events, the preparation for it and implementing it and getting the results, you don't have that much time, right? It's not something that lasts for 3 months, usually. It's a very specific period that you need to utilize on. And the thing is, anyone, like in this case, is shopping, right? Even if they're not seeing something like Black Friday deals, and if they're just targeting something like deals or shopping for something, they would be interested in seeing a 90% off that is Black Friday theme, right? So with the ad groups that you have, if you, like I said, don't have a different value proposition that you want to show to particular users, the entire normal data set that you have, there's just going to be a nice alternative for you to utilize throughout the default product page. And it could be different from geo to geo, particular countries that you're utilizing. It just gives you an additional layer of customization apart from your default product page. And you can go ahead and see that and improve the performance for that particular reason. So yeah, for testing purposes, it's just very limited time. And you don't know from exactly which keyword that you're getting the performance if you do it on the product page side, right? Okay, you change it, performance is increasing, but exactly why, I'm not really sure, right? Is it necessarily these particularly Black Friday related keywords, or is it just my general other keywords? When you're doing Apple searches, since you have the keywords, you know exactly what's getting affected by it positively. And the cases for shopping apps specifically, it's pretty much all around, has an improvement during those particular deal events that are going on in certain seasons. This side is something that I really like, and I have been doing very shamelessly in the past year, is that dedicating custom product pages towards your competitors. So this is one of the things, because the major thing is I don't know how to utilize custom product pages. What am I going to be able to do for it? And the opportunities that you can do for those custom listings, and Steve is getting really happy about it because he knows the because he knows the thing. Yeah. For the competitor campaigns, there are two particular apps that I really like what they're doing with it, and number one is Opera, right? So you might think, is this legal? Yes, it is. just so you know. But basically, anyone who is searching for Microsoft Edge, which is, by itself weird as an idea, why would somebody do it that way? But they still did it, right? So the default product page is the one that you see above, right? The award-winning browser, and all that good stuff and everything, which is fine by itself for non-targeting specific keywords. But for the competitor keywords itself, if you show them something very, so to say, predatory, and saying get the cutting edge instead, and so just like an immediate replacement. Microsoft does this, on the PCs as well. When you go ahead and download Chrome to it, it says like, do you really want, Edge is really good too. Why, you should give it a try and stuff like that. So this is basically driving towards that particular instead, get the cutting edge. And I actually like the Mozilla Firefox significantly better, which the value is fire the fox, which is great. It's a great way to use it. The thing that, of course, you guys are noticing these two sides a lot, and that's on purpose. They want you to focus on these two things first, because when you go into the App Store itself, it's probably going to be these first three things that they're going to see. But everyone's going to be making their decision in this first page, most likely, the vast majority of them. But for those sneaky people who are very detail-oriented that are not going to be going into it, so Firefox, comparatively, why would somebody choose Firefox over something of the default browser that they're utilizing? Firefox has tended to be something a little bit more privacy-centric. There has been, a bit, careful. We have all these encryptions and everything going on. So the second screenshot that they have, I'm hoping that you're able to see it, is they're saying upgrade your privacy at the same time. So for the, the smaller majority, the minority of them making searches for Mozilla Firefox, seeing this as a second one could be something that is going to be persuading them towards it. Because at this point, keep in mind, the person who searched for these particular terms, they're looking for this browser specifically. You're at that very final desperate attempt to convert them over. But the thing is, they're already going to download it. They know what they want. They're that ideal customer type. If you can persuade them at this very last step, good. You just literally stole one perfectly quality user, as you might know with your brand campaigns, right, to your own app. So that's how you can go ahead and utilize it for it. I really love what they're doing. And the second thing, this is quite very small. I don't think you're going to be able to see it that well, But Raid Shadow Legends does the same thing. I hope I could, basically just zoom this in and show it to you. So Diablo Immortal came out. It has been, quite very successful in terms of revenue generation. Gamer-wise, not so much, I would say. I don't really like it that much. I'm more of the classical Diablo 2 kind of guy. So they started, and this is through our own CPP intelligence tool that we did quite very recently, showing who's doing what CPPs that they're utilizing actively. And what they did was they started to target specific Diablo-related terms in their particular ad group. And they attach visuals. I know it's teeny tiny, but you can see the little demon-y kind of figure in the first slot there. So they're basically showing to the potential user that's going to play that hack and slash RPG game that's very related to the similar user profile that Raid Shadow Legends has, saying like, look, I mean, you're going into the game itself for all of the the Helic kind of setting and stuff. I have that too. So yeah, come ahead. You could test out mine too for that purpose. You can go back to Diablo Immortal if you want after all, but give it a go. Give it a try. So that's what they do. And you can actually basically, through this particular tool itself, you have the ability to also understand what specific campaign type that the particular competitor of yours might be doing. If it's for more of a discovery side, understanding those those broad match campaigns and stuff like RPG oriented stuff, more generic campaigns or competitor campaigns, because you have the ability to see the keywords that they're actually bidding on and getting traffic from, and also the visual set that they're utilizing next to it. So another one that I like quite very a lot is what Amazon Music is doing for their own app. Specifically, and when somebody searches for Spotify. So when it comes to it, Spotify has a very specific, the best music streaming service, right? And that's the main value proposition that they're doing. Free streaming music, no subscription required, is the first visual that they're showing. Perfect way to go get at Spotify for that reason, because that's the main thing that would most likely make someone shy away from Spotify and try to find an alternative solution, right? So they understood what their competition is doing and where the weak link is in that chain, and they targeted that specifically. And somebody who searched for Spotify now has a higher tendency to convert over to be an Amazon Music user for that reason, right? Yeah.
Just a quick question, but if I search for Spotify and I see Amazon Music first,
Yes.
most probably it means that Amazon has a keyword Spotify in its
Yes.
keywords.
Exactly.
But is that legal? Because we have done that and we've got an email from Apple Store that please delete it.
No, in Apple searches you can go ahead and compare, basically bid on competitor terms. It shouldn't be an issue. If you got an email, you should compete about that and say like, no.
We had it in our keywords, not search keywords, but...
Okay, so the App Store Connect keywords.
Yeah.
Okay, that might not be okay, especially if you're using in the title or app title. There's very strict guidelines on how to do it. Like, they could do stuff for Instagram and stuff, and there's some form of okayness to it. But for Apple searches, it's free for all. You can do anything and every keyword that you want, every single competitor term. You can copy their entire title if you want to do so, and they're going to be okay with it.
Okay.
So you can go ahead and do that. Completely legal, don't worry. So custom product pages, this is for what I've been talking about is search result campaigns specifically. The second usage for Apple Search Ads, custom product pages in Apple Search Ads specifically is Today tabs, right? And some of you might have tried it. Some of you might be confused about how to try it because it has a significantly strict format when it comes to the custom product pages that you can use with Today tabs. It has to be UI. It has to be from your UI specifically. There's limitations for the visuals that you're going to be using, and there's a lot of things that you need to. There's a lot of hoops that you need to jump through to make it that custom product page eligible for a Today tab. But in order to utilize it effectively, there is something that I've been able to see quite very clearly. So this is what Apple is suggesting in their visual for the the generic garden app that they have with the verticals of showing the value propositions within the UI itself, and this is how my app looks like. What I like actually, and this is what I got from my phone, and our lovely design people made it as it looked my phone, is what Raid Shadow Legends is doing. So the neat thing is, and this is going to be useful for everyone, especially if you have a product that is more catchy and it has a promotional video attached to it that is very much engaging to the user. The thing is, when somebody goes into the Today tab, when they open up the App Store, the first thing that they land on is going to be the Today tab. And the Today tab ad is going to be the second placement. And if you have a promotional video attached to that custom product page that you want to use in the Today tab, that video will immediately start playing. So this side is going to be a scrolling screen to the left, always, very slowly. But since the video starts to play instantaneously, not with sound, just so you know, it starts to play immediately. It immediately starts to spike the interest of the user that goes in, because it's something that is constantly moving around. Everything else around it is still. It takes the attention of the user. Thus, you would be expected to see high tap-through rates, right? But the thing is, this is not targeting a specific search intent. It's generating a certain demand, so to speak, and showing a certain value. The way that I personally use Today Tab is go ahead and try to increase my brand awareness without ideally expecting too much installs that would be coming in. What I'm expecting is the number of impressions that I'm getting from the Today Tab and the number of taps that I might be getting. So I actually have an example of that, of what you could be expected to get of it too. So I did talk about that too. Is for the brand awareness side. So I have an example here for one of our clients that we work together. And this is the progress that they had for 5 weeks of running, Today Tab ads. So in 5 weeks, 19.7 million impressions. This is in the US storefront, just so you know. And about 1.4, 1.5 million taps that they were able to generate. Ridiculous numbers, right? So you might be thinking, I'm not going to be able to afford that. But the thing is, with Today Tab ads, it more so tends to be the case that you control the entire money that you want to spend on every single tap. The more that you could decrease that and increase the daily budget, you can see the uniqueness and you can play around with the cost side of things. And Steve is agreeing with that as well. Again, so you can basically control the amount of money that you're going to be spending on a day-to-day basis. And again, the goal would be to decrease your average CPT as much as possible without losing on this traffic and maintaining an increasing performance when it comes to impressions and taps, and ideally along the way decreasing your overall CPM costs that you could be tracking through the dashboard too. So after we were able to do it, so great, okay, we got 20 million impressions, 1.5 million taps, but what did that convert over to? So this is a screenshot from their brand campaign. Understandably, quite very high, 43.63% tap-through rate, and is almost a 70% conversion rate at the exact time where we looked at the Today Tab. So this turns into, by the end of the 5 weeks, that their conversion rate goes up to 76.2%, and the tap-through rate goes up to 45%. So what this means basically, very, very simply, very straightforward, is that somebody, or a bunch of people actually, saw the ad on the Today Tab, because this is the only different thing that they did in terms of marketing at the time, right? This is just the only thing that they added in Today Tab that was something that we're testing. They saw the ad there, maybe clicked on the Today Tab, maybe didn't, doesn't matter. But they went ahead and searched for it, and with a higher ratio, they started to convert over to the product page, and then with a higher ratio, they started to install the app. Because they were convinced by the Today Tab visuals and the video that was in there, because before even having an intent towards downloading that kind of app, you put it in their minds, you generated that demand for them, and they eventually came ahead and landed on this, and you're able to see that increased performance. So the automatic effect of this, understandably, bid amounts doesn't change, budget doesn't change. If you increase your conversion rate and tap-through rate simultaneously, immediate effect, CPI is going to go down, right? And this is a great example for branding, and I wanted to use this specifically, but I did talk about this in quite a few webinars of ours previously too, is that this is only not for the brand side. Anything that is, again, for the generic side and your competitor campaign side, you also are expected to see increased amounts of performance for it, for that particular reason, and you should be increasing the conversion rate, tap-through rate of the other side too. All right, so yeah.
Can you go back?
Yeah, sure.
This slide?
This one? First one?
Can you talk through lowering your CPT but increasing your daily budget?
Yes.
So get it as low as possible but increase the daily budget, like
yes.
$100, 10 cents.
Exactly, okay. Something like that. So the case would be, ideally, whatever budget that you're putting there is the money that you're willing to spend on a daily basis, right? So, and again, you can spend this $100 with every single tap if you have a 50-cent bid, and you're probably going to be spending 50 cents per tap. And if you decrease it down to, let's say, 10 cents, and you're still able to spend that $100, you're going to be spending 10 cents per tap. And that's going to be 5xing the number of taps that you're going to be getting on a daily basis, right? So basically, that's what I mean by playing around. Increasing your daily budget is going to be increasing the potential that you could see and potential of traffic that you're going to be able to get. But decreasing the bid is going to be controlling the spend that you're going to have through that particular channel, right? So that's the main thing. The bid amount that you determine there is always going to be there, and this applies for keywords too, is that it's the thing that controls the money that you're going to be spending. If you bid less or more, it's going to be controlling the spending accordingly. The daily budget is just like it's like a highway lane, so to speak, right? Expanding component or not.
Yeah, how much did that client spend with 1 million tabs?
For Today tabs specifically, I think on a monthly basis around $400,000, I would say, roughly. So yeah, it's 1.5 million tabs when you think about it. So yeah, like getting that kind of traffic for the money that they're spending is actually a good value for it. Should be like 30 cents per tab. That's not too much for it, especially in Apple Search Ads. So yeah, that's what I have. We have about like 5 minutes, so would love to get some questions in about the topic and how to utilize it. Any specific experiences that you had, bad, good, with the site? I would love to talk about that too. Yeah.
Use that mic as well, if that's all right, just there on the table.
Sorry,
Mic.
this one? Oh yeah, cool.
Pass that down.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Let me just give that. I don't know if it's working or not. Yeah.
Yeah, we haven't yet tried the Today tab, but what we're
Okay.
noticing a lot with Apple Search Ads in general,
Mhm.
just for our stuff, is problematic scale. So it's
Okay.
it's really difficult to scale. That's why
Okay.
for me it's very interesting to hear
Mhm.
that lowering your CPT and then increasing the budget.
Yes.
In my brain, that don't compute because when we do that, our scale immediately drops.
Right.
So is there any particular tips that you can provide to mitigate that, especially with Today tabs? Do they act a little bit like Unity? Like, do they spend everything you give them?
Usually, yes.
Or
Yeah.
can they also have trouble scaling?
Yeah. Usually, yes. You would expect it to see that whatever you're putting as a daily budget, it tends to spend. There's only certain cases where the bid amount that you have is not going to be at all competitive for the storefront that you're in, that you're going to be able to see that. At that point, just play around by increasing the bid ever so slightly, 2-3 cents at a time, right? Until you're able to hit that daily budget that you determined, right? At that point, if you're hitting it, just increase your daily budget rather than increasing your bid. Because that is going to be resulting in a higher amount of traffic without increasing your overall cost per day for that reason, right? And that's how we do it. Scaling-wise for it, there's a lot of ways to go ahead with it for Apple Search Ads scaling effectively. There's a lot of methods that you could use when it comes to keyword research, long tail variations, stuff that they would not be able to give you through broad match all the time or search match all the time, which could be really ineffective at certain times too. So controlling that a little bit more clearly could be helping you out with it. But yes, again, of course, bid should be competitive and you should be able to get it. And if you're seeing a drastic decrease in scale, once you decrease a bid, it's probably the case that you're no longer in that top tier competitiveness. So one thing that you could utilize, there's an Apple Search's suggested minimum and maximum bids, if you would know. So the minimum bid amount that you see there usually is going to be a good way to start to get some amount of traffic. The moment you start to fall short of that, there's still some room to go there in terms of decreasing the costs, but you cannot be that far off from that. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to generate traffic, and that's going to be damaging the scale.
Understood. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Any other questions? Yes. Let's give the mic. Yeah, pass it around. Thanks.
I guess a bit more of a general CPP question, but do you see at any point like Apple introducing more of the metadata touch points to be used from a custom product page perspective, say like title, subtitle, long description?
I really would love for that to happen, truth be told. If you had the opportunity to change the icons, the title, the subtitle, everything, customize the entirety of what the user sees. Didn't really hear anything that Apple wants to do something like that yet. Who knows? Maybe at some point they might want to do. But 100%, if that happened, that would open up a completely new layer of combining Apple Search Ads with ASO2, right? And a whole nother layer of just improving performance, both organically on the paid side too. So yeah, I would love if that would happen. Yeah. Yes, Querin.
Hi, thank you so much. Just a short question, which we didn't touch upon, I think. The short description, how important would you value it in the overall custom product page experience? Because the short description is only shown at the top for returning users.
Yes.
How many, do you have any numbers, how important
Truth
it
be
is?
told, I haven't tested out that many short descriptions to see if there's going to have a large of an impact. But usually it tends to be the case that, I try to get as many new users as possible. But for the returning user, of course, it's going to have an effect, but it's not going to be that large of an effect of a gigantic difference. But again, I need to test it out to see it. But yeah, like from the example that I had with the brand campaign specifically, that's the returning plus new users. It's not specifically targeting one group. But yeah, you should be expecting some amount of improvement, at least if you're utilizing it effectively. With the same idea of, how you put your description with the first sentence of that description is more meaningful towards the potential that you're targeting. Same strategy would apply there, and you could utilize that, and that would be improving your performance, absolutely certain for it. Like, I didn't test it out, but I'm really certain that it's going to be improving it that way. Yep. Any other questions? Yes.
Hi.
Yeah.
Thank you for your presentation.
Absolutely.
I asked this question in the last session, but I think I phrased it wrong.
Right.
Alongside paid CPP,
Mm-hmm.
there is a product page optimization
Yes.
which allows 3 variants
Yes.
on organic.
Uh-huh.
Is this new or has it always been there?
Well, it came out with custom product pages simultaneously.
So how do we approach it differently or similarly to CPPs?
Right. So custom product pages, you will be utilizing in Apple Search Ads for paid campaigns specifically, right?
Yes.
But for the product page optimization is for your organic listing, your default product page. And you have the opportunity to divide up the traffic for the product page itself. For the custom product page, you don't necessarily decide what amount of percentage of traffic is going to go to this ad group versus that ad group, right?
Yeah.
But for the default product page and the product page optimization side, you decide on that. So it's more of a natural A/B test that you would do. But for custom product pages, it's more about testing the visuals if it's going to work or not. For the custom product pages, it's customizing the search intent to the visuals that you're showing to increase relevancy to the user. So product page optimization is more a general A/B test to see which is going to be performing, which visual set is going to be performing better than the other, while custom product pages specifically target towards increasing relevancy to the user.
Cool. And then for product page optimization, can you define from different channels which of the 3 options they land on, or?
You just divide up the traffic.
Ju-
Yeah, you just say that 25% goes to this one, this one, this
But
one,
if
this
I
one.
want, if I run specific creative strategy for Meta, for example, and a different creative
No,
strategy
this is for the
Twitter.
App Store listing only, product page optimization. Like,
But-
it's a default product page that they will see.
Cool.
Uh-huh.
Got it. Thank
Yeah,
you.
absolutely. Yes. And then you.
Have you had any case where Apple rejected to approve the CPP? And if
course.
so, is there any best practice on it?
Well, I mean, they have guidelines that hopefully they follow too at certain points that I've, combated them on that a lot, and they really don't give that many details. But, basically it's you can try to stay on the safe side, try to play around with it, try to push as much as you can, appeal with it. But yes, that process that you would have with sending things for review, not only for custom product pages, but everything else when it comes to Apple, would be the case that you need to jump through some hoops and try to understand. There's no really one way to make it work all the time, but very strictly follow the guidelines. Usually you will have less trouble if you do that particular way, for that reason. Yes, you had a question. Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
Can I utilize custom product pages if I'm not able to do product page optimization to know if one version of the design will work better on the organic?
Well, okay, so that's something that comes across quite very frequently too. So with custom product pages, you cannot do A/B tests. So you cannot really run a simultaneous test. You can do a before and after test, which is okay, but it's not as good as an A/B test would be. So in order to determine if something is going to be performing organically better with a custom product page could be a little bit tricky, because you're not basically bidding on every single keyword that you're ranking for at every single position and applying that same custom product page in every single case, right? So you're targeting specific ad groups. If you found a way to find every single nook and cranny for every single organic keyword that you have, yeah, sure, go ahead to see if it's going to be working well, but it's just not going to be that very possible.
Yeah, I have an issue that we have a very frequent releases and we
Yeah.
are not able to A/B test.
Yeah.
Is there a workaround around that?
What I would do, especially for you to understand a bit better, is that if you're bidding for the keywords through Apple Search Ads for the keywords that you're ranking between 1 and 30, right? If you have a good list of that and you all push them into a very specific idea, not combating with other keywords that you have, in a particular ad group and test out certain custom product pages with it, the results that you would see as a before and after would be signifying a certain interest, because that will be the majority of where your organic downloads are going to be coming from, right? So it's improving for those 1 to 30 keywords, ranking keywords for the most part. If it's as significant as a change is, the more it's going to be confident for you to decide. Again, it's not an ideal scenario where you can do an A/B test, but it can still give you a better idea if you say, like the average conversion rate was 50, and then once you apply the custom product pages, it jumped to 62% overall speaking. That could give you a good idea to say, like, yes, I think this visual set is going to be working well organically, without going through that entire hoop of, okay, now I've sent my app for review, so it stopped the product page optimization, and I didn't get the results and stuff like that too. So that's how you could do it. Would I suggest you to do it? Not really, but if you need to do some form of testing, which everyone does, yes, this is the most ideal case that you could do it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I got it. What is the brand big?
Depends on the market.
Okay.
Should
Couldn't
be.
you just run it on your brand, and then like
Run
maybe
it.
whatever the most generic keyword for your particular brand could be?
I could try.
Yeah. I mean, I try to go with a safer approach. Like, brand is going to be, certain percentage.
Who likes my answer better?
Yeah, I mean, it's easier significantly with your way, right? But yeah. Any other questions? Right, okay. So it's pretty much lunchtime. Thank you all for joining.